It's 1983 and Orbiter 4 is in orbit around Earth carrying two cosmonauts. One of them is singing and is kidding with the other Kostya that he'll report him to Mission Control for not doing the same. They chit-chat about what they'll do when they get home. While Mission Control checks up on them, Kostya opens the latch hooks and they undock. The other sings again as they are getting into the landing position, but something hits the spaceship. They gain control back of the ship, but the singing cosmonaut sees something in the window moving outside of the ship and toward the hatch. Later, a parachute is seen in the sky over Soviet Kazakhstan. A man on a horse approaches the fallen spaceship. He lights a flashlight and finds one of the cosmonauts dead on the side of the ship. The other one is crawling out of the ship, barely finding his footing as the man approaches him. When the cosmonaut raises his head, blood is coming out of his mouth and his eyes are completely black. A woman is seen entering a conference room in the Research Institute for Brain AMS in Moscow. The room is being prepared for a hearing. The board members come in and the hearing begins. Tatiana is being investigated about an injury she possibly inflicted on a patient. Her colleagues from the board don't doubt her methods, but still think that a certain level of negligence should be considered. She disagrees, saying that she did what needed to be done on a misdiagnosed patient. A man is observing the hearing and later approaches Tatiana in the lobby. He introduces himself as Colonel Semiradov and asks for her consulting help on a patient, saying that he also runs a form of research institute. She is a little apprehensive but becomes interested as he tells her that he's also involved in neuropsychiatry. Semiradov tells her that he will take her to see the patient. On the way there in a helicopter, they talk about the patient. She asks for his medical files, but instead he gives her an oral report. He tells her that the patient is one of the cosmonauts from Orbiter 4 and explains that certain things were left out of the media. Kostya appears to be suffering from episodic amnesia, not remembering the incident that happened in space before the ship landed. She asks if she should sign a non-disclosure agreement. They arrive in Kazakhstan and take a car to the Scientific Research Institute. Once there, Semiradov informs her that she can move freely in 90% of the institute and after she gets her clearance she could get into the restricted area as well. They enter an elevator which takes them to an observational room. Meanwhile, Kostya is being hypnotized by a psychiatrist. Tatiana observes the session from the other side of the glass. The psychiatrist wants to get information out of the cosmonaut, but he just kids with him. The doctor gets angry, saying he can't help him if he doesn't let him help. The man coughs and the doctor gets unnerved. Kostya tells him that he can't be hypnotized, since only the most mentally strong can be sent to space. Dr. Rigel walks into the other side of the room, greeted by Semiradov, who tells Tatiana that he's the research director of the institute. The cosmonaut bangs on the window and asks what has happened to his colleague. Tatiana asks what Colonel Semiradov needs and he tells her that he needs her opinion on his condition. She walks on the other side of the window and introduces herself. Kostya is happy for the change from Rigel. She offers him some tea, which he takes and drinks. Tatiana observes all of his movements and tells him why she's there, then asks him about the toy in the corner. He replies that it's his, something having to do with cosmonaut traditions. She asks him what happened during the mission, but he is weary of doing it again. Since she hasn't read the files, he still tells her that the mission went without a glitch until the landing procedure, after which he can't remember anything, apart from waking up in the institute. He realizes that she can't help him get out of there, so when she says that she can at least help him, Kostya gives her the name and number of his mother, asking Tatiana to inform her that he's alive and well. She takes the tea and before she leaves, says that it was a pleasure to meet him. When she hands the teacup to Rigel, it burns his hands and she explains to the colonel that Kostya has PTSD and that his sensory receptors or peripheral nervous system might be damaged. After giving her evaluation, she asks to leave. The soldier taking her to her room tells her that the colonel would need to authorize her departure tomorrow. As they walk, they see a few people working under supervision. He takes her to her room and says she's the only one in the building. Tatiana gets into her room and unpacks, then wants to make an outside call, only to be told that no one can make those from the base, except Semiradov. That night, she's taking a bath and a giant scar is seen on her back. She takes some pills for the pain and goes to bed, but since she can't sleep she goes out for a run. Suddenly, she runs into one of the prisoners. Once back in her room, there's a knock on the door. It's Semiradov. He takes her back to the observation room and asks her when was the last time she ate. When she replies, he checks his watch and gives the order to start. A glass window comes down in the cosmonauts' chambers and more soldiers come in, securing the door. Tatiana and the others watch the security cameras as something starts happening to Kostya's body. Suddenly, he falls from the bed and something is coming out of his mouth. The blob transforms into an alien creature. Tatiana is shocked. Semiradov asks her if she wants to take a closer look. She goes to the glass window and waits for a sight of the creature. It appears. She observes it and it observes her. Tatiana reaches her hand out to it, but it jumps at the window. She goes out of the room shocked and terrified. inside. Semirid fronts to her and tells her the creature is non-terrestrial. Tatiana wants to know if Kostya is aware that it lives inside of him. The colonel wants her to find a way to separate the host from the parasite, or she could leave and sign the non-disclosure agreement. She asks why he chose her for the task, and he answers that it is because she is willing to take risks in his mind that would save their national hero. Tatiana asks for the videotapes of the creature, Kostya's testimony and all the notes they have. She will need to have 2 sessions a day with him, 1 hour each. The colonel is content to have her stay. Tatiana goes through the documents and finds out that the cosmonaut was placed in a rehabilitation center first, but the creature emerged the first night and killed a medical technician. Then they brought him to the facility and started trying to separate the man from the creature, though nothing has worked thus far. Without the creature inside of him, the cosmonaut's vital signs drop, but with the creature inside, he has amazing capabilities of regeneration. Kostya is seen exercising in a gym under the supervision of a doctor. He tells him not to exert himself too much. The cosmonaut says he feels generally good. Later, Tatiana is looking through the footage of the creature and is taking down some numbers. Rigel comes in and she asks for the whereabouts of Kostya's son, but he doesn't really answer. Then she asks what the creature feeds on, and he tells her that it feeds on the same things that Kostya eats. She tries to establish a rapport with the doctor, but he dismisses her attempts and tells her to talk to the colonel. She calls the orphanage where Kostya's son is staying from Colonel Semiridov's office. A paralyzed child is seen getting up and going to get something, but a nurse catches it in the act and stops it, scolding it. The next day, Tatiana comes into Kostya's room for their session. She tells him that the people who brought her to the institute think that he has lost his mind and that he's killed his co-pilot. Rigel and the colonel are listening from the other side, and the cosmonaut is confused that they would think that about him, and if that's the only reason why he's being held behind armored glass. She asks him who he really is. Tatiana antagonizes him over the heroism of space flight and quickly moves on to ask him about his son, telling him he's abandoned him. He's offended and asks her to leave the session. On the other side of the window, she tells them to test his endocrine system, thinking that if they understand his hormone levels under stress, they'll be able to figure out what the creature eats. Next, she asks the colonel to move him into the civilian area during the day so that they can get a more realistic clinical picture. Semiridov abides her request and gives Kostya a normal room. Tatiana comes into his room and apologizes, explaining why she did what she did in the session. He tells her that he didn't know about the boy, that he was informed about his existence when his mother died 1 week before the mission. Before she leaves, he asks her one more thing, to tell him why he's really being kept there. However, Tatiana can't answer that question. That night, she goes into the observation room to see the alien creature. She tries tapping on the window to get its attention, but then crouches down and waits for it to appear. When it does, she lies down and it mimics her behavior. Tatiana disturbs the cosmonaut's toy when she stands up and she notices the way the creature looks at it, so she asks to go inside the room. The colonel allows it, so she is put in a protective suit. She enters the room and puts the toy down for the creature. It immediately goes to it and coils around it. Tatiana wants to touch the creature, but she slips and she falls. The creature grabs her and drags her in, so the general flashes it with lights and Tatiana is taken away from the room. The colonel then goes to face the creature. That night, Tatiana is in her room and the colonel comes inside uninvited. She proceeds to explain to him what she learned from the incident with the toy. She thinks that the creature and the cosmonaut share the same consciousness because of the way it reacted to the toy. That means a lot to Kostya. Furthermore, she thinks that every night it spends more time outside of Kostya's body and eventually it won't need him anymore. Tatiana asks the colonel to take them to Moscow, but he refuses, knowing that won't be possible because of how much they don't know about the creature. Later, she goes to talk to Rigel and notices something wrong with one of the videotapes. He says it's a glitch, but she hits him with the question about the difference in the hormone levels of the cosmonaut between day and night. She thinks they feed the creature something that they're not sharing with her. Rigel tells her to leave while she still can, but she thinks he wants a Nobel Prize and offers to help him get it without her own accolades. Tatiana asks for the missing information to be given to her without the colonel's knowledge. Rigel hides her in his vehicle and sneaks her into the restricted part of the facility. Meanwhile, Kostya is being given sedatives, knocked out and then wheeled back into the observational room. Rigel parks the car inside the facility and gives Tatiana night goggles, telling her the battery lasts for only 10 minutes. He leaves the car and a giant cage can be seen, with a few soldiers taking out a prisoner from a truck and putting him inside of it. They turn the lights out and they all put on night goggles. The creature has left Kostya's body and it's been guided to the cage. Tatiana sees it from the car as it goes toward the prisoner, then jumps it and rips his head off. She makes a sound and one of the soldiers hears her inside the car. Rigel diverts the soldier's attention and he doesn't find her. Later, he drives her back at the dormitory and gives her some water, as well as some additional information. He found out that the creature feeds on cortisol, the fear hormone that's released in the brain. But he tells her that feeding it humans was the colonel's idea. She leaves the car telling him that he's a coward. The next day, Tatiana asks Kostya to go for a run with her. As they run, she tells him about the creature and that they need help from the government to separate them. But he runs back. He tells her to find out if she's being followed and meet him in his block at 1 a.m. That night, they give him his pills, but when they leave he throws them up. He crushes up the pills and puts them in his tea. Then, he leaves his room and chats up the nurse that's guarding him, asking her to come inside and watch a movie with him. She falls asleep on his shoulder. Kostya takes apart the TV and takes the magnet out. He meets with Tatiana. Then, he places the magnet on the camera which will create an error. The guard sees that there's something wrong and comes down to check the camera, but when he doesn't find anything he leaves and they can freely pass in front of it. Kostya and Tatiana go to the freezer room where he sees the bodies. There are scans of his body there also. She asks him if he can feel the creature inside. He says that he is the creature and that he can remember everything in detail of what it has seen. Kostya tells her that if Semiradov knew he would never let him go. His co-pilot is there too, but he's alive. He begs Tatiana to help him by enduring 2 more weeks in the institute until a review board from Moscow arrives and he can be set free. Kostya doesn't want to be guilty for feeding the creature people or to die there after all that he's been through. He wants to live and get his son. Meanwhile, in the orphanage, the child goes to get a package and the nurse finds it again. It scratches her and she calls it an invalid. Tatiana is returning to her room as 2 soldiers corner her and take her to the offices of the colonel. They argue about the morals of the situation with the creature, with him firmly believing that he's doing the right thing in the name of peace. Tatiana doesn't think that human sacrifice is needed, but the colonel tells her what kind of prisoners the men are. He suggests they go to the feeding together so that she could see it up close. At the feeding ground, 2 prisoners are brought inside the cage and the creature is let in. It keeps getting closer to the men and Tatiana begs the colonel to stop, saying she'll find another way to feed it. Then she asks to be let inside the cage with the creature. She starts singing the same song she heard Kostya sing before and the creature calms. Rigel and the colonel watch her do it as the doctor exclaims that the creature has adapted, that it can hear now. While Tatiana is singing to the creature, Kostya is seen reacting in his room as well, not unconscious anymore. One of the prisoners undoes his restraints and the creature hears him move. It attacks him and kills him. After the feeding, the colonel asks Tatiana if Kostya can control the creature. She tells him that he can't do it yet. Semiradov thinks that eventually they will learn how to control the creature. He asks her to put their differences aside. The next day, Tatiana is working in the room with the co-pilot when Rigel comes in. She starts talking to him in Latin, telling him to help her and Kostya escape. He doesn't want to, but she tells him to man up. Later, Rigel brings her the sedatives she needed but asks her not to tell anyone he helped her. She walks over to the guard and sedates him. Tatiana asks the doctor to help one more time. He comes with her to get Kostya. When she goes inside his room, she finds him on the floor. She tells him that the colonel will do anything to keep the creature there. Moreover, she's figured out a way to get the creature out of him by injecting him with a combination of drugs that will mimic a specific disease. He doesn't want to do it, afraid that the creature has adapted and that it will survive out of him. Furthermore, he thinks the creature has saved his life and tells her to run because it chose him for a reason. It was his punishment for abandoning his son. She tells him his son's name and age, so he changes his mind and goes with her. The doctor tells them that there's a car outside and gives her the keys. The 2 of them leave and Rigel goes to the colonel's office to make a call to the authorities and give them information about the institute. Simultaneously, another soldier finds the sedated guard. They check the footage and see that Tatiana and Kostya are running. The colonel orders a response team to be sent to bring back Kostya alive and terminate Tatiana. The response team finds and stops them. Back at the office, Rigel is still on the phone when someone tries to come inside. He ends the call the moment the colonel gets inside the office. The colonel kills him. Meanwhile, Tatiana and Kostya are hiding from the soldiers. When he asks for the syringe with the drugs, she throws it at him and he shoots the drugs in his heart. The creature leaves his body and faces off with the soldiers. They shoot at the creature, but it starts killing them. Tatiana drags Kostya to a car and they escape the compound. Eventually, the colonel goes to face the creature. He drops a smoke bomb and starts shooting at it. They're both hurt, but the colonel shoots at it again. At the same time, Kostya coughs up blood in the car. Tatiana realizes that he won't survive without the creature. He says that they can still escape, but she drags drags him out of the car. The Colonel reaches them and asks her if she changed her mind. She says that they have become fully symbiotic and can't be separated. As the soldiers take the creature out of the trunk, the Colonel drops the gun she was holding and the soldiers open the creature's enclosure. The Colonel incapacitates her, but Kostya manages to control the creature and it kills the soldiers. He goes after the Colonel next and kills him too. Tatiana goes to check if Kostya is still alive. As the creature crawls to them, it doesn't kill her and gets back into Kostya's body. She tells him that she can separate them if she can get him to Moscow. Suddenly, Kostya kills himself. As the authorities Rigel called for arrive at the scene, Tatiana is going to Rostov, where the orphanage with Kostya's son is. In a flashback, the kid comes back for the package. The nurse finally acknowledges its persistence and gives it the package. It opens it to find sneakers inside. Tatiana walks inside the orphanage and tells the guard at reception that she's there to adopt Kostya's son. Meanwhile, the child is putting on the sneakers and stands up from its wheelchair. The nurse says that everything will be alright and the child turns and tells her that its name is Tatiana. In the present, she's waiting outside for the boy. He comes out and she greets him. They embrace. This is the end of movie Sputnik.